G'day everyone, welcome to Inside Rugby with Mark and to the review show of the All Blacks versus France. Third test match played in Hamilton today. Let's get into the video. So plenty of changes in the All Blacks team for this game as well, mainly due to injury, and we saw Luke Jacobson pulling out of the game just before it got underway as well. So another reshuffle for the All Blacks. And that meant that Adi Savia would go back to number 8 and Karefi would come in to play on the number 7 jersey. So it was all on the line for the French in this game. Were they able to get a win against the All Blacks? They didn't look so good in the second game in Wellington, even though the All Blacks didn't play too well for periods of that second half. But they did get close in Dunedin in the first test. So was this going to be a little bit of a renaissance for the French? Or were the All Blacks going to be able to control it? Well, in the first couple of minutes of the game, it was pretty tight. And we didn't see any stoppages, in fact, for the first 4 minutes of this game. So it was pretty much full on right from the start. And we saw some good work early on, I thought, from Damien McKenzie in the first couple of minutes. He was showing that he wanted to get on the front foot in this game. And he also got away a good kick. Ruben Love also showed us a good darting run in the first couple of minutes of the game. But it was the French that were going to open the scoring in this game, and it was through that halfback Nolan Ligarac, who did a really fantastic play around the blind side off a line-out drive. That was close to the All Black line. It looked like the French forwards were going to go over, but they peeled away and Nolan Ligarac went over on the right-hand side. And the first question that came to mind was, where was Sevu Reece in the defensive line? He wasn't there, and if you watch the replay several times, there was no Sevu Reece guarding that side of the field where he should have been in defence. So Garac went over, the French went into the lead, and the try was converted. So France went out to 7 points to 0 after as many minutes. And was this going to be the day? Well, the French were showing us early on in this game that their modus operandi was to go up the middle and try and take the All Blacks out through the centre of the ruck. They were doing some really big plays, and as we'd seen from this French team, they didn't have a tremendous amount of confidence in going wide against the All Blacks, probably pacier backline. But whenever the ball went out to the likes of Feku and Hastoy, they started to dart back in towards the forwards and make it hard work for the All Black defensive line. This was tiring out the French though, because their forwards had to do a lot of work in recovering the ball and go for second, third and fourth phase play, which we saw a lot of it early on in this game. We got to the 14th minute of the game and France had New Zealand on the rack. They were putting on multiple phases of play. The ball came out to Hastoy at number 10, and unfortunately for France and all of their supporters, he knocked the ball on and gave up a golden opportunity for France to get some more points on the board. Well, we didn't have to wait long for that to happen, because just a couple of minutes later they got a penalty opportunity and they decided that they wanted to keep the scoreboard ticking over. Ligarac took that, and they were out to 10 points to 0 after 18 minutes. They had all the momentum in the game early on, the French. They were doing some good work around the forwards, and they were getting more possession than the All Blacks were. And as a result of that, they were showing a little bit more promise when it came to going forward. Their intent was clear. They wanted to score points whenever they got the opportunity. They stuck down into the All Black half, and they didn't really give too much away. They started off the game, I thought, in that first 20 minutes far superior than what the All Blacks did. But we got to the 21st minute of the first half and two players came into their own for the All Blacks. First of all, it was Cortez Ratama, who put over a little chip kick over the top of the French defence. The bounce favoured Will Jordan, who's always running onto a ball like that, and he was able to scamper over for another try for the All Blacks. Try number 168,000 for Will Jordan in a black jersey. But it was a good comeback from the All Blacks, and hopefully this was going to give them some momentum. Damien McKenzie got the conversion over, and before we knew it, we were back to 10 points to 7 in favour of France. A little bit surprising, because I thought France had a lot of the play in that first 20 odd minutes, but the All Blacks did capitalise by actually putting an opportunity over the line when they had it. 2 minutes later, and it was absolutely France's mission to keep the scoreboard ticking over, and they got close down into the All Black 22 again. The ball came out to Hastoy, and he took a drop goal opportunity which went over, and France found themselves out to 13 points to 7 after 23 minutes of the game. It was the All Blacks who had the next turn to go on attack, and they were held up over the line through some really good French defence. And this is what we started to see a lot more of as the game went on. The French defence was really stepping up. They stopped Finau from scoring a try on this particular occasion. Dorporti was the one that was under the ball, and good defensive work from France. But was all this defensive work going to start to sap the energy of the French? That was one of the things that I was looking for. And were they able to keep their discipline in control? Well, a few minutes later we saw another clever piece of work from Damien McKenzie, putting a kick through for Will Jordan to chase onto. And this has seemed to be the way that the All Blacks wanted to turn this French team around, using their weapons out wide, getting in behind them, and unfortunately on this occasion the ball went dead in goal before Will Jordan was able to get his hands on it to score what would have been another spectacular try for the All Blacks. So unlucky on that particular occasion. France came down again on attack, and it was thanks to Patrick Tuipulotu that they got a good defensive win in the line-out. The All Black line-out at that stage was working quite well. Both Fabian Holland and Patrick Tuipulotu were doing good work, and that saved their bacon on that particular occasion. So then in the 29th minute, the All Blacks were back down on attack in the French territory. The French impeded a breakdown opportunity from the All Blacks, so they were given a penalty to the All Blacks. Damien McKenzie stood up and took the kick for goal, closed the gap on the scoreboard to 13 points to 10 in favour of the French. The French were still doing some very good things in this game. The tackle count was getting huge, and Guy Fecu, who was playing his 95th test match for the French today, was doing enormous amount of tackling in the midfield. The All Blacks were starting to get pick and goes on a roll and looking a little bit dangerous as the half was starting to go on. I thought after the penalty, the French won the restart from the kickoff, a problem area for the All Blacks throughout the series. They haven't been able to control the restarts very well. On this occasion, it gave the French the opportunity to get back down onto attack. So in the 32nd minute, the All Blacks succumbed to another penalty in their own territory. This time it was Anton Leonard-Brown who was caught offside, and starting to have a game that I thought he would want to forget, Anton Leonard-Brown. And as I've mentioned in my previous videos, I don't think Anton Leonard-Brown is the right midfielder the All Blacks need to be focused on as we head towards the Rugby World Cup in 2027. However, on this occasion, he gave away a penalty. Lagrac came up and kicked it over again, and France kicked out to a 16-10 lead with just a few minutes to go until the half-time. Two penalties in a row for the French. In the 35th minute, Quinn Tupaia got pinged for an extra roll on the ground. So it gave the French another penalty kick opportunity, and Lagrac was not going to miss this one either. The French kicked out to 19 points to 10 with just a couple of minutes to go until half-time. Important now, were the All Blacks going to be able to get something back on the French before half-time, or would the France go to the half-time break with the momentum in this game? Well, the last couple of minutes of the first half belonged to the All Blacks. They first of all went right down onto attack. They got held up again over the French line. Brilliant defence by France. And there was a dropout from the goal line, which France was going to be put under more pressure. But it was the All Blacks who finished the first half the strongest. They put on 14 phases of play. The ball came out to McKenzie. He put a kick through, and it's Anton Leonard-Brown, that man I was just talking about, who went over for a try. So Anton Leonard-Brown went over for the try, but unfortunately for me, getting the try didn't take away some of the things that were happening within the New Zealand's midfield during that first half. So a good try to the All Blacks in terms of multi-phases of play. They were able to keep the ball together, keep the pressure on the French, and stay patient, which I think was the key to that try. 1915 became 1917 when Damien McKenzie was successful with the conversion, and after 41 minutes in the first half. So that was it for the first half. The referee would blow his whistle. The French would go to the half-time at 19 points to 7 in the lead. And I think a lot of people sitting at the FMG Stadium in Hamilton were a little bit surprised with that. I think France played good in the first 20 minutes of this game. They showed they were up for the defensive encounter again. They were trying to attack through the middle, but I thought they were too one-dimensional, and I thought all that work they were putting in, particularly in defence, was going to tell in the second half. But was this All Black team going to be good enough to take advantage of it? That's something I've been talking about all year so far with the All Blacks, is their second half performance, particularly when the bench comes on. And I was a little bit nervous the fact they were already behind in this game, but I thought the French might run out of gas in the second half. They'd put in a lot of tackles in that first half, and they were really trying in against the All Blacks, but the All Blacks looked more enterprising when they did go wider, and they worked out pretty quickly that if they got the ball in behind the French, got some territory, they were able to pick up the possession out wide. Look, it wasn't too good from the All Blacks in that first half. I thought Ruben Love played really well. I thought he was dangerous he looked dangerous when he got the ball. Will Jordan was having another good game as always. I didn't think Damien McKenzie went too bad in that first half. He did some good kicks, he did some others that I questioned, and his passing was okay, trying to put people through the gap, but he was being let down by Quinn Tupaia and Anton Leonard-Brown, who just didn't seem to have any idea on how they were going to get through the French defence. Sevu Reece was very busy. The TV commentators were talking him up big time, saying he was having a brilliant game. I didn't see it. I thought he was doing a couple of things okay, but at the end of the day he wasn't making any breaks or making a huge difference, and he went missing in action when the French scored their first try. So I didn't see that Sevu Reece was having a brilliant game, particularly in that first half. I thought the All Blacks needed to really come out and try and turn things around in that second half, because if the French didn't fall off the pace, then they might have been able to take this one to the wire like we saw in Dunedin. And I think the work the French were putting in was starting to take its toll, and we saw an early change from Fabien Gaultier in the second half. Just after a couple of minutes we saw Roman Taiafanua come on, and we also saw George Bauer come on for the All Blacks, and we hadn't seen him since he was on the Northern Tour last year, so it was going to be interesting to see how George Bauer went. So we saw a bit of a chess game early in the second half. We saw a couple of good turnovers from Karefi. I thought he was playing quite well and doing things off the ball that were helping the All Blacks. Ruben Love did a couple other good things. He got a really good high ball take, if you check that out, early in the second half as well. He looked secure under the high ball. He was having a good game in 15, and I'm surprised we haven't seen him earlier in this series for the All Blacks. Let's hope he sticks around now. So it wasn't until the 57th minute where we saw the next scoring action in this game, and it came from the All Blacks. They were on attack, they got a good line out possession, and it was that man Karefi that ended up going over for his first try as an All Black. So that would have been a fantastic milestone for him, scoring that try and putting the All Blacks in the lead for the first time in this game after 60 minutes. The conversion of the try was missed, and we went back to a bit of a tussle from both teams after that score. The All Blacks in the lead though, 22 points to 19. Were they going to run away with this game? We were starting to see the benches come on throughout the game, and Fabien Gaultier was trying to keep all of his players on the field. There was a couple of injured, wounded walking around, and he had no one left on the bench, and deciding to go with the 6-2 split for this game. Barry on the French fullback side was having a terrible game. I thought he got caught out a couple of times in terms of in possession with the ball, but he was also out of position on a couple of occasions, and he had a shocker last time out as well. So despite starting the game really well in the first couple of minutes, I thought his efforts as the game went on were an area of weakness for the French, and the All Blacks were starting to pick up on this. 59th minute of the game, we saw Aradou go off for France, the French lock. He's a very, very good player. I talked about him in previous videos, and I thought he had an exceptionally good game. He was great in the line out today. He was good around the field, and one of the biggest defensive players from the French. Tixion came on, and within a few minutes he got injured, and this was going to be a bit of a problem as he carried his left shoulder for the remainder of the game for France. France went on attack though and got nearly over the line, and if it wasn't for Jordie Barrett with a try-saving tackle, they would have scored at that stage, and that would have been really important for France to get their mojo back in the second half. But Jordie Barrett saved the All Blacks on that occasion with a great try-saving tackle in the corner. We saw Brodie McAllister come on for his first cap for the All Blacks, and unfortunately it didn't start well. We saw some horrendous line-out throwing, and the All Blacks lost 3 line-outs in a row in that 60 to 68 minute period of the game. They almost lost a 4th, but it was luckily secured by one of the loose forwards for the All Blacks, and they were able to put together a maul. So it wasn't a good start for McAllister, and the pressure was on the All Blacks to be able to secure the ball. They started looking choppy again and fragmented, particularly in the back line, and I thought Razor was going to need to make some changes, as he did as we entered the last part of this game. So as we got close to the end of the 69th minute of the game, we saw Finau go off, and we also saw Papali'i come on, and we saw Noah Hotham come on for Cortez Ratama. I didn't think Ratama went too bad today. I saw some good things from him. His passing seemed to be a little bit better, and his couple of kicks were effective as well, particularly the one that led to the Will Jordan try. So while it wasn't a fantastic performance by Ratama, I definitely wouldn't call it as bad as some of his recent games were, so not a bad performance from him at all. Noah Hotham came on. I was excited to see how he could finish this game for the All Blacks in the last 10 or 12 minutes. So more changes for the All Blacks. Tava Tavanawai came on, and that was another man I was looking forward to seeing if he could make an impact. Quinn Tupaia went off, didn't have a good game. as far as I was concerned, made a couple of basic errors, and his combination with Anton Leonard-Brown certainly wasn't setting this All Black backline apart. And I keep saying that over the 12 and 13 at the moment, we have a huge question mark in this All Black group. We don't seem to have the coordination required to not only get over the gain line, but to be really creative and get some good back play going, particularly for our wingers. Hotham came on and made an immediate impact with a really good, clever kick that put the line out 5 metres out from the French line, putting the All Blacks on attack, and was an opportunity for the All Blacks to put the pressure on the French and really try and close out this game. Remember, the French hadn't been able to score so far in the second half, and this was going to be a very important part of the game if the All Blacks were going to be able to close it out. As I've said in recent videos, the closing of the All Blacks in games this year hasn't been good. It was one of their problems last year as well. But were they going to be able to wrestle the momentum away from the French in this particular one, as the French got more and more tired as this game went on? Well, the answer was yes, and it was thanks to that man who'd come on again, Geordie Barrett, who got through a good break close to the French line. Inside him, running off for support, was that man Brodie McAllister. So despite his throw into the lineouts, Brodie McAllister ended up scoring a try on his All Black debut. Well done, man. Go away now and practice on your lineout throwing, because it was horrendous when you came on the field. But the All Blacks were able to put the game away in the 76th minute by scoring that try. That put the game score out to 29 points to 19 after the conversion was successful from Damian McKenzie, and the French weren't going to get back into this one. So the All Blacks ended up scoring 12 points to 0 in the second half. So I guess you could say they did close out the game very well. But I tell you what, it wasn't that impressive. It was winning ugly, if winning at all. And that's how it came about. I just think the French ran out of gas in that second half. And if they had some of their star players, I think they would have seen more enterprise and opportunities. But they came with what they came with. And they gave us what they gave us in this series, the French. But a huge effort from the French. The tackle count was massive. They were over 270 tackles in this game compared to 170 from the All Blacks. So as they got more and more tired in that second half, the All Blacks were able to build some possession and territory and ended up finally in the 76 minutes scoring that try to McAllister. It wasn't smooth from the All Blacks. It wasn't flowing rugby. It was disjointed. They made some basic errors again, particularly in the lineouts were quite horrendous. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the players that I think did well for the All Blacks in this particular game. And at the top of my list is Ruben Love. I thought he had a really, really good game. So pleased to see him in this team. And now we want to see Razor pick him on a regular basis, because I think he deserves to be in this team for the All Blacks. He played very well at 15. I'd still like to see him at number 10. I think come the Rugby World Cup in 2027, Ruben Love is our man for number 10. So why not start playing him in that position now to give him the confidence and the opportunity throughout the Rugby Championship? That's what I would be doing if I was Razor Robertson. I think Will Jordan had another good game. Hardly see him have a bad game for the All Blacks, but he came on as that late replacement cover to start this game because of injury to Rieko Ioane, of course. So he came off the bench and played the full 80 minutes for the All Blacks. Sevu Reece, got a question mark over the guy. I still don't think he's the answer on that other wing for the All Blacks. And I think he had an okay game. He showed a lot of energy, I'll give him that much. But in terms of being that really dynamic, decisive line breaker, not for me. And he was also caught out on a couple of occasions in the defensive line for the All Blacks. A lot of you know what I think of Damian McKenzie, but I tell you what, credit where credit's due. I think he had an okay game. His kicks were quite good on occasions. His passing, though, in terms of getting this back line away, wasn't that good. But here's the caveat to that conversation. The caveat is that Tupaia and also Anton Leonard-Brown were not good in the midfield. They didn't give McKenzie, I think, any running opportunities to really get themselves into the game and get some good breaks, how we see from other top teams in World Rugby at the moment. And it's really a weakness of the All Black game. And you could go back to the last game and see what Beauden Barrett had to do at number 10 to try and put some of those strategic kicks through to get the 12 and 13 to run onto those balls. We didn't see much of that in this game at all from the All Blacks, and it was a really big weakness of their game. Ardie Savea, captain of the team again today, a fantastic performance, probably up there as far as man of the match competition goes as well. Led by example, got in there and made a couple of good turnovers at critical times in this game, stealing the ball for the All Blacks when they really needed that opportunity uncovered, and Ardie always does that. I thought Karefi had a good game. and got some a lot of work done off the ball that really managed the All Blacks around the field a lot better at different times in this game as well. I thought Geordie Barrett had a good game as well. I thought he came on at a great time for the All Blacks in a try-saving tackle as well as setting up a try. There's no doubt about it in my mind that his time away with Leinster has done Geordie Barrett's rugby game really, really good. So maybe we need to send a bunch of other All Blacks off overseas to practice their rugby, but he did really, really well. Noah Hotham I was impressed with, and now this is going to give Scott Robertson something to think about. I think Cam Roigard and Noah Hotham are going to be our 9 choices when it comes to Rugby World Cup 2027. So therefore, I'd like to see Noah Hotham get a lot of time throughout the Rugby Championship competition this year. For me, in the forwards, Fabian Holland has been the standout throughout the series for the All Blacks. Again, in this game, he was securing good line-out ball. He was also very good in the set piece and doing a couple of things off the ground that were good as well in this game. And I think he's the standout lock in New Zealand rugby at the moment, no doubt about it. So thank you to everyone in the Netherlands for producing Fabian Holland and sending him our way, because we're absolutely grateful having this great lock in our team. And I think we're going to see Holland around for many years to come in the black jersey. I think we've got some question marks over Takiaho. I didn't like his performance today. And again, Fletcher Neal did well when he came off the bench. I thought Tyrell Lomax was okay, picked up a bit of an injury, I thought. But again, we didn't see absolute dominance in the forwards from the All Blacks. Ethan de Groot was okay without being brilliant, but we're really missing Tamati Williams, I think, and Cody Taylor from this particular team. Now on the French side, I thought we saw brilliant games from Lee Garak. He was great again. Fiku was great from a captain point of view. As I mentioned, he put in a lot of tackles. Aradou was great while he was on the field, securing a lot of ball and doing some good stuff. And Gillard, again at number 8, had an outstanding game. I talked about him in the preview video that I thought he was outstanding for France, and he delivered again. The French, for me, they just run out of gas in the last 30 minutes of this game, and that's where it could have been the difference. If they had some of their really top players in this team, I think they would have found some magic and some way to get through this All Black team. But nevertheless, I think this development squad did the job for Fabien Gaultier throughout the series, showed him a lot of what they've got in terms of depth, and I think this French team will only get better from here. So I'm really interested to see what they can do throughout the rest of the 2025 international season. So for me today, some poor things done by Quinn Tupaia, Anton Leonard-Brown and Brodie McAllister as far as his line-out throwing was going. Sevu Reese's defence was nowhere as well, costing the All Blacks that try in the opening minutes of the game. And I think that's some of the areas that Scott Robertson's going to have a look in the debrief. So the All Blacks won this game. It was winning ugly as far as I was concerned. There wasn't a lot of flow to the game in terms of the All Blacks putting back-to-back performances together from one side of the field to the other. At times there were more individuals going for things, and individuals like Adi Savia stepping up and doing some good stuff, particularly in the steal area, along with Karefi was doing some good work. But I thought in terms of Geordie Barrett, Will Jordan and also Ruben Love were probably our standouts in the backs for the All Blacks. So I think the All Blacks are going to need to regroup now. So many injuries in their squad at the moment. They've got their first Rugby Championship game coming up against Argentina in Argentina, where they'll play 2 test matches against Los Pumas. And by the time the All Blacks get there, they're going to have to want to get a lot of these injuries out of the way and get some of these players back on the field. The problem now lies is we've had a game in between those players being injured. So will they be able to hit the ground running for Scott Robertson when they get to Argentina? And what's he going to do with the selections for those players that did stand out in this game? Are we going to see the likes of Ruben Love back in the starting lineup for the All Blacks? Are we going to see Geordie Barrett slot straight back into the midfield? So there's no doubt about it for me that Tamati Williams, Cody Taylor and Tyrell Lomax are our front 3 that need to be in this All Black starting team, along with Fabian Holland and I would say Patrick Tuipulotu, as far as I've seen so far in this series, if Scott Barrett's not going to be back. We need to see Adi, I think, back at number 7 as well. And I think the experiment with Sapapini Finau is probably over now. We're not seeing enough from him in that number 6 jersey, so we're going to see Tupou Vai back in there, I hope, for the All Blacks. Number 8, we've still got a question mark, so whether or not Luke Jacobson gets a chance on this tour to Argentina, we'll have to wait and see. Halfbacks for me, Cam Roigard and Noah Hotham. Those are the 2 that have stood out in these 3 games, and I think I want to see more of them going forward. And in number 10 for now, it's got to be Beauden Barrett, I guess, but why not Ruben Love? I'd like to see him in there at number 10. The midfield is a mess for the All Blacks, and this is an area that really needs to be cleaned up, as is the wings as well, because if Will Jordan's going to go back to fullback, then I don't see us having any good wings at the moment that are playing in really good form. So we'll have to wait and see whether Caleb Clark's going to get back into the team. You know, I'm still not convinced by the bench for the All Blacks. Yeah, Geordie Barrett came on and he scored a try and saved another one in this game, but normally he would be in the starting lineup, so you wouldn't have had him coming off the bench. But in this particular game, it did work. I just still think we're behind some of the top teams in World Rugby in terms of being able to have that impact in the last 20 minutes of rugby games like this, and we're going to find out whether or not that's going to be good enough when we travel to Argentina. This is all set up now for a fascinating series against Los Pumas over those 2 games in the Rugby Championship. So there we go, that's my review of this game in Hamilton. The All Blacks end up winning the series 3-0. The French will go away knowing that they've done a lot of good work with this development squad, and when it comes time for the Northern season at the end of the year, I'm sure the French are going to be firing with all their guns back in the team as well, so watch out for their performances. Really interested to know how you saw this game from the All Blacks, so let me know in the comments who those standout players for you are the ones that I've critiqued. Are you on my side with that, or do you think I've seen it wrong? Let me know in the comments, as I'm sure that you will. Okay, well that's one of the first games away for this weekend. I'll be back soon with some more content as the rugby internationals keep flowing this weekend from across the world. Until then, keep safe, keep well, keep enjoying your rugby across the world, everyone, and thank you for watching me here on Inside Rugby with Mark. I'll see you all again soon. Adios from beautiful Cancun in Mexico.